right now on 5 on your side at 10.
Record rainfall. Another day of drenching rain in St. Louis puts a big dent in the drought. Why the tropics will play a big role in our upcoming weekend forecast.
A Missouri death row inmate set to be executed in a matter of hours. Tonight, the last hope to spare Marcellus Williams' life. Our top story, a fallen officer remembered.
I've never seen anyone like David.
Tonight, we're hearing from Officer David Lee's grieving family.
He loved everybody and he loved his job.
As charges are filed against the driver accused of causing his death.
We lost a really good officer, and this didn't have to happen.
Tonight, that driver sits in jail on several charges, including a DWI, causing the death of a law enforcement officer. Good evening, everyone. I'm Kelly Jackson.
And I'm Mike Bush. Those charges were filed less than 24 hours after Officer David Lee was killed while responding to a crash along I-70. We have team coverage tonight. Paula Vassan sat down with Officer Lee's wife and son, and Annie Krall talked with those standing by to support them. We start with Laura Barczewski with the latest on the investigation and the charges filed in the case. Laura.
Mike and Kelly, St. Louis Police Chief Robert Tracy says these charges are the beginning of seeking justice for Officer David Lee, but nothing will ever bring him back. Just hours after St. Louis police officer David Lee was killed, black bunting was placed above the doors and attached to the flag at police headquarters where his brothers and sisters on the force are grieving.
Our community has lost a great police officer.
Officer Lee had pulled over on I-70 to help a woman in a single-car crash Sunday morning, and while he was getting traffic cones from his patrol car, he was hit by another car, pinned between two cars, and thrown several feet.
Since this horrible tragedy, we've been working with the Circuit Attorney's Office to ensure swift justice.
St. Louis police say the 24-year-old driver who hit Lee, Ramon Chavez Rodriguez, is now facing several charges. He had a blood alcohol level that was above the legal limit at the time of the crash. He was going 71 miles per hour in a 55 and was driving without a license.
The person was probably coming from possibly O'Fallon, Illinois, and going back to where he resides in St. Charles County. So he's taking that highway back.
St. Louis Circuit Attorney Gabe Gore says Chavez Rodriguez is not a citizen of the United States, but that part of the case is being handled by federal partners.
That's not relevant to our charges except for the purposes of considering whether or not he should be granted a bond. My understanding is that he did have a hearing on his immigration status that was set for later this month or later in October.
The immigration status hearing is connected to a different case where he was charged with another DWI and domestic assault in St. Charles County. Chief Tracy says while the wheels of justice are turning, they're devastated.
I don't think there can ever be a relief because we're never going to get Officer David Lee back. I don't think there can ever be any closure.
Chavez Rodriguez could face up to 15 years in prison solely for that DWI charge, and court documents say today the judge did not allow him to bond out of jail. Reporting live downtown, Laura Barczewski, 5 on your side.
He is a hero. He's just amazing. Everybody loves him.
Today, for the first time, we heard from the family of Officer David Lee. His wife and son spoke with us from their home in Florissant. 5 on your side's Paula Vassan continues our team coverage after speaking with the family who are not only remembering his life, but also pushing for greater safety measures for officers in the line of duty.
David Lee started working as a police officer in North St. Louis City 18 years ago, around the same time he married Tanya.
I'm gonna miss him dearly because he was my yin to my yang. My best friend.
She brought us into the same living room where they talk for hours, clutching a stuffed teddy bear he gave her for Valentine's Day.
He was my one. He was my partner, my other half, one half of my heart.
His son Khalil shares memories of a father who loved his job, basketball, and guiding him through life.
He was somebody who I could talk to about anything. He's the reason why I chose to go to school for criminal justice and do what I'm doing now.
A man who put family first. Tanya recalls their last night together. They prayed as they always did, and he said something she'll never forget.
It was weird. He laid beside me in the bed, and he put his hand on my thigh, and he said, "Thank you for everything." And I said, "Oh, babe, thank you for everything." He said, "No, seriously, thank you for everything." And I didn't know this was my husband saying bye to me.
She also says her husband often talked about his concerns about the dangers of I-70, where he was killed Sunday morning by a driver charged with being under the influence of alcohol.
I feel like it's unacceptable and it could have been prevented. Someone such as MoDOT or another cruiser or patrol car should have several feet between stopping for an accident. Therefore, the young man possibly could have been slowed down early on before he got to my husband.
Paula Vasan, 5 on your side.
And the family is being assisted by Backstoppers. It's an organization that provides financial support and assistance to the families of first responders who die in the line of duty.
Shortly after that interview, Officer Lee's family visited a growing memorial outside SLMPD's North Patrol headquarters. Our Annie Crawls spoke with a family friend and the widow of a retired St. Louis police officer who understands the pain they're feeling. Annie.
Mike, Officer David Lee was a Pattonville High School alum along with his younger sister, Danielle. Reliving those high school memories at his North Patrol Memorial tonight was one of the hardest parts for one mourner on Monday. Black bunting across the North Patrol Division, flowers and balloons covering a St. Louis Metro Police car on Union Boulevard. All of this as family and friends of Officer David Lee held space Monday night for the man they loved.
How cool he was and how he just had a smile of gold and how he just greeted everyone so great.
The balloons came courtesy of Sierra Douglas, the best friend of Officer Lee's sister, Danielle.
The outpour of support for my best friend, her mom, it's just amazing. For his kids, for his wife. I mean, he touched a lot of souls. He really did.
Douglas lives in Ferguson, telling us she's known the officer who was hit and killed in the line of duty on Sunday morning since she was 16.
He was just such a wonderful guy. Such a wonderful guy. He was her big brother, but he was also my big brother too.
A big brother for 25 years.
David loved being a cop. This is what he loved to do. He loved to do it, and I've heard him tell my best friend numerous times, like, if I have to go out, I want to go out in the line of duty doing what I love.
Someone who knows what it's like to lose a loved one and officer as they put their lives on the line is Ann Dorn. Her husband and retired St. Louis Police Captain David Dorn was shot and killed in June 2020.
He was my soulmate. He was my best friend. So I just want everybody to remember him and the smile that he had.
Dorn was shot and killed while protecting Lee's pawn and jewelry from looters during the unrest following George Floyd's death. 4 years later, Ann, a retired SLMPD sergeant, unpacks what the road ahead looks like.
Unfortunately, there's been other police widows I've talked to, and I do tell them, you will have physical pain over this. It will literally break your heart.
Ann said she will be reaching out to Lee's family to support them as they take more time to grieve. Friends tell me they hope to hold a candlelit vigil and a balloon release soon to also honor the fallen hero. The family says Officer Lee's funeral will be potentially October 5th in North St. Louis.
And to learn more about Officer Lee and the investigation, be sure to look for updates on air on KSDK.com and on the 5 on Your Side app. You can also watch the family's full interview on the 5+ streaming app. Tonight, we're learning new details about the recovery of Ferguson police officer Travis Brown. He has been in a coma ever since suffering a brain injury after being tackled by a protester last month. Ferguson police now say Brown no longer has pneumonia. Doctors are working to clear blood clots. He has to improve his blood pressure.
Developing tonight, in less than 20 hours, Missouri death row inmate Marcellus Williams is set to die by lethal injection. It comes after the state Supreme Court ruled this evening that the execution should move forward. Brent Solomon is in the newsroom with what will happen from here.
Hey there, Mike. Tonight, the group Missourians to Abolish the Death Penalty tells me it will deliver more than 1 million signatures to the state capitol tomorrow. It's a last-ditch effort to halt the execution, despite today's ruling from the state's high court.
Please be seated.
In Jeff City Monday, a hearing before the Missouri Supreme Court to stop Marcellus Williams' execution 1 day before it's set to happen.
And basically, Mr. Williams is going to be killed because the government mishandled this evidence.
Michelle M.L. Smith was at that hearing and listened as the state's high court ruled against staying the execution. Prior to that ruling, Williams' attorneys insisted there were errors in jury selection for the 1998 stabbing death of newspaper reporter Felicia Gale. They also pointed to what we've heard before, reports of the murder weapon being mishandled.
And the main person who would say the government did wrong and would know is Prosecutor Bell. That's his office today. And he looked back at what his office did, and he said, yes, my office messed up.
After the ruling, St. Louis County Prosecutor Wesley Bell saying this: even for those who disagree on the death penalty, when there is a shadow of a doubt of any defendant's guilt, the irreversible punishment of execution should not be an option. He goes on to say his office has questions about Williams' guilt and about the integrity of the conviction. Governor Parson denying Williams' request for clemency, saying Monday capital punishment cases are some of the hardest issues the governor's office has to address. He said, quote, when it comes down to it, I follow the law and trust the integrity of our judicial system.
I've heard Governor Parson also say that he stands with victims' families and he does what the victims' families want. The victims' family doesn't want this.
The governor says Williams exhausted due process, saying no jury or court have found merit in his claims for innocence. Tomorrow, Williams supporters will gather in several cities, including at the state capitol. They're hoping the U.S. Supreme Court will step in.
Record rainfall continues tonight. Downtown St. Louis just now starting to clear up after seeing close to 2 inches of rain.
Chief Meteorologist Scott Connell is here to tell us how long this rain is going to stick around.
Well, this band of heavier rain tonight is sliding east, so it's on its way out of the St. Louis area, but boy, has it been a wet day. Here at Lambert, we picked up 2.71 inches of rain through 9 o'clock. That is a record for the day on a daily rainfall. But you see, it's mostly moving to the east towards the Interstate 57 corridor. Very fortunate. None of this was more than just heavy rainfall. Very little in the way of wind, very little in the way of any hail with this, but still some downpours over towards Centralia and Mount Vernon and Salem, but pushing away. Strongest storms are down towards Carbondale right now, but they've gone through Perryville. Yes, it was a bit noisy, and yes, that rain a bit heavy. Over the last 72 hours, upwards of 5 to 6 inches of rainfall in a few places. Just in the last 24 hours, 2.22 inches over in Troy, Illinois. Going into North County, 2.67. Up in Bellefontaine Neighbors, 2.61. Out in Warrenton, 1.82. That's the last 24 hours. Down in DeSoto. Tomorrow will not be nearly as wet as the last couple of days. There is a chance we will have a few scattered showers, but it's mostly just clouds and temperatures in the mid-60s. Coming up in a few minutes, what we're dealing with later this week.
A manhunt tonight in Alabama.
We're going to hunt you down and we're going to arrest you, 100%.
The search for the group of gunmen suspected in a mass shooting. The call for the community to help bring them in. A lifeline after devastating flooding.
If you need the help, reach out for it.
The federal care package keeping Illinois families above water.
New tonight, police in Birmingham, Alabama are searching for a group suspected in a deadly mass shooting.
4 people were killed, 17 others were injured in a busy entertainment district. Investigators believe Saturday night's shooting was meant to be a, quote, targeted hit. Police are placing a $100,000 reward for information on suspects. City officials say it will take the community to catch the suspects.
We cannot give safe harbor or shelter to people who want to just simply kill people. We can't give them cover. They should not feel safe in our community.
Since July, 7 people have died in separate shootings in that same area of Birmingham. President Biden hosted the president of the United Arab Emirates as attacks in the Middle East intensify. Over the weekend, Hezbollah launched over 100 missiles at northern Israel. Today, Israel retaliated with airstrikes, killing hundreds in Lebanon. The two leaders spoke today on how to bring an end to the war.
I've been briefed on the latest developments in Israel and Lebanon. My team is in constant contact with their counterparts, and we're working to de-escalate in a way that allows people to return to their homes safely.
The UAE president also met with Vice President Kamala Harris. His visit comes ahead of tomorrow's kickoff of the United Nations General Assembly.
Boeing says it has its, quote, best and final offer to end their machinist strike. The company furloughed many St. Louis employees to save money during the strike. The offer includes a 30% pay increase over 4 years, a ratification bonus worth up to $6,000, an increase in 401k contribution matching, and a commitment to build its next new plane in Western Washington. This deal would increase average pay from $76,000 a year to $111,000 over the next 4 years.
We're now 43 days away until Election Day, and this week voters on both sides of the river can start casting their ballots. Starting tomorrow in Missouri, if you have a valid excuse, you can request an absentee ballot in person or by mail. You have until October 23rd to request a ballot by mail. All registered voters can vote non-excuse absentee beginning October 22nd. All absentee voting ends November 4th. That's the day before Election Day. In Illinois, early voting opens for all registered voters on Thursday and runs through November 4th. Hours and polling places for in-person voting vary from county to county. The deadline to request a ballot by mail, October 31st.
Right now, Washington County, Illinois residents can apply for federal assistance after devastating flooding back in July. More than 3,200 people evacuated from Nashville after the city's reservoir failed. Now, the major disaster declaration allows anyone in Washington County or St. Clair County to apply for FEMA grants. They cover the cost for home repairs and temporary housing, as well as low-interest loans to cover uninsured property losses. More than 70 families have already applied.
If you need the help, reach out for it. Seems like, in Washington County, a lot of people, they're older, they're proud, they don't want to ask for the help. It's there, take it.
Washington County will not receive federal funding to repair washed out roads. That's because the damage total did not meet the $26 million damage threshold.
And Chief Meteorologist Scott Connell is back with the weather impact forecast. We needed the rain.
We did.
But we're going to get a lot of it, it sounds like, this week.
You know, potentially towards the end of the week with the tropics being active as they are, and we'll get into that in just a minute, we have another round of potentially heavier rainfall. What we've seen so far this evening now, the heaviest shifting east of St. Louis, and what's back to our west, and what we deal with tomorrow into tomorrow night, much less intense. So you're not going to get as much in the way of rain, but yes, there's still a chance right on into tomorrow evening. Right now, the strongest showers and thunderstorms all off to the east and southeast of St. Louis. These have been producing heavy rainfall, that tropical rain that really adds up, but we've had 1 to 3 inches in many cases tonight, and some spots upwards of 4 or 5 inches over the last couple of days or more. That heavier rain's down towards Carbondale. It keeps on trucking and heads over into Indiana here as we head through the remainder of the overnight hours. Now we get into tomorrow. Is there a chance we'll have some showers and storms around tomorrow morning? They'll be scattered, sure, but we don't expect to see the widespread area of rain like we had tonight. And tomorrow during the day, much lesser opportunities for showers or any rumbles of thunder. But with the extra clouds, we're still in the lower 70s for highs tomorrow. In fact, very comfortable and below average temperatures across the region. So back into the low 70s tomorrow afternoon. Yes, that chance for some scattered showers or thunderstorms. Not anything severe, not anything that's going to cause widespread flooding. We needed this rain after the very dry conditions. Here's why we might get more later in the week. This area down here in the Western Caribbean, we're tracking a disturbance that's trying to get organized. Most of the stronger thunderstorms are actually to the east of what appears to be this developing area of low pressure. And we continue to see that kind of tracking off towards the northwest. Hurricane hunters are going in there tonight. Hurricane Center is forecasting this to strengthen into a hurricane, potentially a major hurricane, and then move ashore here later this week across most likely that part of northeast Florida, or really the northeast Gulf Coast there, around Apalachicola and to the east, and then bring it back towards St. Louis. Well, when that happens, that drags rain in here. So for Thursday night into Friday, into Saturday, into Sunday, we're thinking that tropical moisture is going to swing back in. Keep in mind, as always, with tropical systems, there's a lot that we still have to figure out. We do know that the Gulf of Mexico, those water temperatures incredibly warm, and it's deep warm water too, and that'll fuel the fire, if you will. And so the potential's there for this to be a major hurricane and to head our way. But since it doesn't have a center right now, you know, we'll have
just don't know.
Yeah,
usually goes up the East Coast, but
this one's good. Yeah.
Turning left.
Yeah.
All right. Scott, thanks. Frank is here with sports.
So what athlete in St. Louis is best at their job? I will have the answer next. Plus, it's Monday and we're playing Hit and Run with Paul Goldschmidt.
This 5 on Your Side Sports Report is sponsored by Telly Tire and Auto Centers, driving your way since 1942.
If you were to look at the body of work of every St. Louis athlete in the year 2024 and try to determine who's been best at their job, it would be a no-brainer. It would be Secretariat at the Belmont. It's Ryan Helsley, the Cardinal closer. Helsley was on the mound and got the final out as the Cardinals closed out their final series at home by taking 2 out of 3 from the Guardians. And his job title is appropriate because when the Cardinals had the lead in the opposition's final at-bat, chances are it's big number 56 closing the door. Here's what I mean. He finished the game in 60 of his 63 appearances with a major league leading 47 saves and 7 wins. He's accounted for 68% of Cardinal victories.
Been lights out. I mean, we talk about availability, effective, everything. I mean, he takes the ball every time you need it, and he goes to town. I mean, he just continues to throw up zeros. This series was a good one. I mean, it really was. It's a tough team across the way. You're going to play some close games like we have all year, and he continues to do an incredible job.
The Buffalo Bills hosted the Jacksonville Jaguars, and they were rude. They scored touchdowns on their first 5 possessions. Josh Allen, much to Mike Bush's dismay, was majestic. Shad Khan may be calling Bill Belichick soon. Buffalo rolls 47-10. The Bengals hosted the Commanders. I have 3 kids, but I'm officially putting a 4th in my will. Jaden Daniels, the Washington quarterback, accounted for 3 touchdowns tonight, and Washington wins 38-33, and most importantly, so does my fantasy team. A tip of the cap to Illinois and Brett Bielema, who are ranked 19th in the country this week. They won at Nebraska on Friday. Luke Altmaier is the Big Ten Offensive Player of the Week after throwing 4 touchdowns. He's the only quarterback in America with 10 touchdown passes and no picks. At 9th-ranked Penn State is next for the Illini. On Mondays, we often play hit and run with a sports celebrity, and 7-time All-Star Paul Goldschmidt qualifies. It's not the season he wanted, but it's been a great career. With the help of editor Tom Stasiak, we're playing hit and run.
Here's a 1-0. Goldschmidt sends one deep to left. That is way back.
Favorite place to eat in St. Louis?
I would say maybe Paul Manos. I like Paul Manos.
I understand you're really into golf. They say that hitting a baseball is the toughest thing to do in sports. Would you say hitting a golf ball straight is even tougher?
It's definitely tougher for me.
You would feel more comfortable hitting a 95-mile-an-hour fastball than on the first tee with 1,000 people watching?
Oh, no doubt. But I mean, I've spent thousands, if not tens, 20s, 30,000 hours practicing baseball and not nearly enough practicing golf.
No baseball in this world. You would have done what with your life?
I was kind of good at math. I was studying finance, so maybe something in the business world with math or finance.
What pitcher would you really never like to see again? You just couldn't hit, you just don't want to see him.
Oh, Sonny. Sonny was, I think they said I was 1 for 20 off Sonny, so I made sure in spring training to not have to face him so my confidence wouldn't get killed too much.
What player in baseball would you like to be for a day that you're kind of like, boy, I'd like to have his talent for just one day?
Probably Mike Trout. I mean, he's been the best player in the game for the last decade, and gosh, he can run as fast as anyone, hit it as far as anyone.
High fly ball hit toward left center. Perkins on the run at the track, and whoa, it's gone.
And your son's favorite player is?
That's a good question.
It's not you?
It might be. I'm sure he'd say me, but I think, he loves Nolan. He loves Newt. Both my kids love Albert from that a couple years ago, and he treated them so amazing. So they know all their favorite Cardinals, but I think they just think of them as dad's friends. They're still a little young to really realize, how cool it is.
It's wild how sometimes it's not the dad. It's like my mom's favorite sportscaster was not me, but Mike Bush.
Any chance Goldschmidt will be back?
I doubt it. Yeah, a little too much money. Yeah, and declining production too.
All right, thanks, Frank. Stuck between a tree and a hard place. How one driver was left hanging.
St. Louis is about to get weirder. Musician Weird Al Yankovic announced he'll be stopping in the Lou for his Bigger and Weirder tour. Yankovic will perform at St. Louis Music Park. That's in Maryland Heights in September of next year. Tickets go on sale Friday.
A car hanging by a thread caught on camera. So a driver in Florida drove her car through a parking garage barrier and then got it stuck between the garage and a tree. First responders were able to use ropes to get the driver down safely. Police still investigating what caused this crash.
Oh, my goodness. Final check of the weather, Scott.
Yeah, garages happen, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, weather-wise, the rain is moving out right now. We had a good, healthy rain today. Many of us 1 to 3 inches, over, almost 3 inches in St. Louis for a record for the day. Tomorrow's not as wet, but there's still that opportunity for some rain. Friday into Saturday into Sunday, we'll watch what happens in the tropics. It's not good news for Florida, especially east of Apalachicola, but it is going to impact us with some tropical moisture.
And there you have it. 5 on your side at 10. The Tonight Show starring Jimmy Fallon is next.
Be sure to start your day with Today in St. Louis.